My name is Amara, and I was born with a mirror in human form, my identical twin sister, Adana. From the moment we came into this world, people never failed to compare us. Teachers compared our grades, family compared our looks, and boys compared who was more charming. We were like two sides of a coin, but while I always tried to shine with honesty and kindness, Adana had a darkness in her that grew sharper as we got older. Growing up in Lagos, life wasn't easy. Our parents worked endlessly to put food on the table. I focused on school, determined to rise above poverty, while Adana always searched for shortcuts. She was beautiful, yes, but she also knew how to use that beauty to manipulate people. When we were 16, she had already broken the hearts of half the boys in our neighborhood, while I stayed the quiet one, watching from the shadows. But despite her flaws, she was my sister, my twin, and I loved her more than anyone else in this world. I never imagined she could betray me in a way that would shatter everything I had built. By the time we turned 27, life seemed to be finally smiling on me. I had finished my degree in accounting and landed a stable job. More than that, I had met the love of my life, Cheek. He wasn't just handsome and hard-working. He was gentle, patient, and kind, the kind of man every woman dreams of. He saw me, truly saw me, in ways no one else ever had. We dated for 3 years, and when he proposed, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. The day he knelt on one knee with a ring in his hand, I cried tears of joy. I thought my life was finally perfect. But I was wrong. Adana had always been competitive with me, but I believed deep down she was happy for me. She smiled at the engagement party, hugged me, and whispered, "You deserve this, Amara." Yet I caught something in her eyes that unsettled me. Envy. A hunger. At the time, I ignored it, brushing it off as my imagination. Little did I know that hunger would lead her to commit the most wicked act a sister could ever do. The weeks leading up to the wedding were hectic but exciting. Our family home was buzzing with preparations, fabric being measured for A-so Ebi dresses, aunties gossiping, uncles arguing about the guest list. My parents were proud, though stressed. And through it all, Adana stood by me, or so I thought, helping me pick out jewelry, advising me on makeup, pretending to be my biggest supporter. On the morning of my wedding, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. The air smelled of fried plantain and stew from the kitchen where the caterers were already working. My dress hung on the wardrobe door, a flowing white gown with delicate lace sleeves. It was everything I had dreamed of since I was a little girl. Adana came into my room that morning, looking radiant in her bridesmaid's dress. She hugged me and whispered, "Today is your day, sister. Nothing will go wrong. If only I had known." The church was decorated with flowers in shades of white and gold. The choir was rehearsing hymns as guests filled the pews. I remember clutching my bouquet, my hands trembling with nervous joy as I prepared to walk down the aisle. My father held my arm tightly, his eyes glistening with pride. But just as the ceremony was about to begin, whispers rippled through the crowd. Then chaos erupted. A woman stormed into the church, a heavily pregnant woman. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She pointed directly at Cheeky, my groom, and shouted, "This man is the father of my child!" Gasps filled the room. My legs went weak. I felt the world spinning around me. My father grabbed me as I nearly collapsed. Chike's face turned white as chalk. He stuttered, I don't know her." But the woman had receipts. She pulled out pictures, messages, even videos. Everything pointed to an affair between her and Chike. The church was in uproar. Guests were shouting, some demanding the wedding be stopped, others calling for explanations. My mother was crying uncontrollably, while my father's anger burned like fire. And me? I stood frozen, my entire future crumbling before my eyes. I turned to Adana, desperate for comfort. But instead, I saw it. That look, that wicked, satisfied glint in her eyes. She quickly masked it with a fake expression of shock, but I had seen it. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. The wedding was called off immediately. Cheek was disgraced, his family humiliated. My parents dragged me home, ashamed and heartbroken. The whole community was buzzing with gossip. Amara's groom cheated, they whispered. Her marriage ended before it even began. I locked myself in my room for days, crying until my eyes were swollen. My dreams were shattered, my reputation destroyed. I felt like I had no reason to live. But the deepest wound of all came not from Chike's betrayal, but from a truth I would uncover days later. Because the pregnant woman? She wasn't some random stranger. She was a woman Adana had paid to play a role. Yes. My own twin sister had orchestrated the scandal that ruined my wedding. And her reason? She wanted Cheeky for herself. I didn't find out immediately. For weeks, I lived like a ghost, barely eating, barely speaking. Until one evening, I overheard a phone conversation. Adana was in her room, laughing quietly, and I pressed my ear to the door. Her words cut through me like a knife. Don't worry, he's mine now. Amara will never rise again. She's too weak. The wedding was only the beginning. Soon, everyone will see who the better sister really is. I covered my mouth to stop myself from screaming. My hands trembled violently. My twin sister, the girl who shared my mother's womb with me, had stabbed me deeper than any enemy ever could. That night, as I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, one thought burned in my mind. Adana will pay. She may have ruined my wedding, but she will never ruin my life. I will rise again. And when I do, the secret I hold will break her. After that night when I discovered Adana's betrayal, my soul became a battlefield. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to scream, to fight, to expose her wickedness to everyone. But another part of me, the quieter, colder part, told me to wait. Revenge, I realized, is sweetest when it's served at the perfect moment. I swallowed my pain and pretended ignorance. Around her, I wore the mask of a broken woman too weak to question anything. Adana, of course, thrived in my silence. She would strut around the house like a queen, mocking me with subtle comments. Don't worry, Amara, she would say sweetly. Not everyone is meant to be a wife. Maybe God has other plans for you. Her words were knives, but I learned to let them pierce me quietly, storing the pain in a vault within my heart. I was waiting. Life outside wasn't easier. The community's whispers followed me everywhere. Neighbors who once praised me now shook their heads in pity. Such a shame, they murmured. A woman abandoned at the altar. Who will marry? Her now? I returned to work, but even there the news had spread. My colleagues avoided my eyes, some out of awkwardness, others out of judgment. It was as though I carried a scarlet letter across my forehead. But what no one knew was that, deep inside, a fire was burning. A fire to rebuild myself, to rise from the ashes, to show everyone that Amara was not weak. I began by focusing on my career. Instead of drowning in shame, I poured my energy into my job. I worked late nights, volunteered for difficult projects, and studied for professional certifications. Within months, my efforts bore fruit. My boss promoted me to a managerial role, doubling my salary. For the first time since the wedding disaster, I smiled genuinely. Meanwhile, Adana was busy parading her so-called victory. After sabotaging my wedding, she wasted no time chasing Cheeky. At first, he resisted her advances. He was ashamed, still trying to clear his name from the scandal. But Adana was relentless. She would show up at his workplace, bringing food, pretending to comfort him. She spun lies, convincing him that I was weak, that I never truly loved him, that she was the sister who understood him. Slowly, her poison worked its way into his heart. One evening, she proudly announced at home that she and Cheeky were officially dating. My parents were shocked. My father's veins bulged with rage, and my mother broke down in tears. "How could you do this to your sister?" she cried. Adana only shrugged. "Love has no rules," she said smugly. "Besides, Amara doesn't want him anymore." I said nothing. I simply watched, silent but calculating. Let her believe she was winning. Months passed, and their relationship grew more public. I would see them together in the neighborhood, hand in hand, smiling like the perfect couple. People whispered even more. Some pitied me, others mocked me, but I stayed quiet, building my strength, waiting for my moment. Because there was something Adana didn't know, something that would eventually destroy her. You see, Cheek had once confessed a secret to me, one he begged me never to share. He told me that years ago, in his reckless youth, he had fathered a child with another woman, but had never publicly acknowledged the boy. He had been ashamed, afraid it would ruin his future, so he kept it hidden. I had forgiven him then, believing in his efforts to change, but now that secret was no longer mine to protect. I didn't act immediately. Instead, I kept watching, gathering information. And soon, I realized the universe had a way of balancing things. Adana and Cheek's relationship was not as perfect as it appeared. Behind closed doors, they argued constantly. Cheeky grew frustrated with her vanity, her greed, her selfishness. He missed my gentleness, though he never admitted it openly. Adana, in turn, became possessive, terrified that he still loved me deep down. Their fights became frequent, sometimes loud enough for neighbors to hear. And through it all, I waited patiently, knowing the cracks were forming. Then came the day that changed everything. I was at work when I received a phone call. It was from a lawyer. He explained that my company's clients were expanding into real estate and needed someone trustworthy to manage their investments. They wanted me. It meant a significant pay raise, travel opportunities, and influence beyond anything I had imagined. I accepted without hesitation. Suddenly, I was no longer the pitiful bride abandoned at the altar. I was a rising star in my industry. People began to respect me again, and the whispers of shame turned into murmurs of admiration. Adana noticed, of course. Envy flared in her eyes whenever I returned home with new clothes, new opportunities, and a new glow. She tried to belittle me with snide remarks, but I ignored her. Inside, I was smiling, because my revenge was drawing near. It was around this time that I reconnected with someone unexpected, the mother of Cheeky's hidden child. Her name was Ngozi, a humble woman who worked tirelessly to provide for her son. She had no bitterness in her, only quiet strength. When she learned who I was, she hesitated at first. But when I explained how Adana had betrayed me, how she had stolen my fiancé and ruined my wedding, Ngozi's eyes softened with sympathy. She agreed to meet me privately and share her story. Listening to her, my resolve hardened. Cheek had not only betrayed me, he had betrayed her too, abandoning her and the child they shared. And Adana, she was about to tie herself to a man who carried a secret that could shatter her pride forever. I knew then what I had to do. 1 year after the ruined wedding, the stage was finally set. Adana and Chaike had announced their engagement. The irony burned like fire. My twin sister was about to marry the man who was supposed to be mine. But unlike me, she wouldn't get to walk down the aisle in peace. I had waited, planned, and prepared. And now, on her big day, I would reveal the secret that would break her completely. The morning of Adana's wedding dawned bright and loud. The compound was filled with laughter, the pounding of drums, and the clatter of pots from the kitchen. Aunties fluttered around like butterflies, fixing head ties and gossiping about how beautiful the bride looked. I watched it all from a distance, my heart calm, my mind razor-sharp. A year ago, I had stood in her shoes, nervous and glowing, only for her to snatch my joy away. Today, it was her turn. Adana was radiant in her white lace gown, bejeweled headpiece glimmering in the sunlight. She moved through the house with a smile that screamed triumph. She caught my eye at one point, and with the smirk only a twin could recognize, she whispered, "You see, Amara, destiny chose me, not you." I said nothing. I only smiled, but inside me, thunder rolled. The church was packed with guests. Important people from Cheeky's family had travelled far to attend. His mother beamed with pride, while his father nodded approvingly at the union. Everyone seemed to believe this was a fairy tale wedding. Everyone, except me. As the ceremony began, I took my place quietly among the guests. I could feel people glancing at me, whispering. After all, I was the sister whose wedding had been destroyed the year before. My presence alone was scandalous, but that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted every eye in that church to witness what was about to happen. The choir sang beautifully as Adana walked down the aisle. She looked like a queen, her gown trailing behind her. Cheek stood at the altar, forcing a smile. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I saw something there. Regret. He knew he had chosen wrong, but pride wouldn't let him admit it. The pastor began the vows. My pulse quickened. The moment was coming. "Does anyone here have any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony?" the pastor asked. The church fell silent. I rose slowly to my feet. Gasps echoed around the room. All eyes turned toward me. "I do," I said, my voice steady but powerful. Adana's face drained of colour. "Amara, sit down," she hissed, her eyes wide with panic. But I didn't sit. I walked forward, every step echoing through the silent church. "With all due respect, Pastor," I said, "this marriage cannot proceed. Because the man standing at that altar is hiding a truth so dark, it will destroy not only this union, but both families if it is ignored." Whispers erupted. Guests craned their necks to see me. The pastor looked confused. "My daughter, what do you mean?" I turned to Cheek, who was trembling. "Do you want to tell them, Cheek? Or should I?" He shook his head furiously. "Amara, please." "Fine." I cut him off. My voice rose, ringing through the hall. This man fathered a child years ago. A son he abandoned. And he never told Adana. He never told this church. He never told anyone. The entire congregation gasped. Murmurs filled the air like a rising storm. Adana's bouquet slipped from her hands. What are you saying?" she stammered. I turned toward the back of the church. "Ngozi," I called. The doors opened, and Ngozi walked in, holding the hand of a small boy with Cheek's exact eyes and nose. The church exploded in chaos. Women screamed, men shouted, children cried. The little boy clutched his mother's hand, confused by the noise. Cheek's mother collapsed onto a bench, wailing. His father rose, fury blazing in his eyes. "Cheek, is this true?" Cheek was frozen, sweat pouring down his face. He stuttered, then fell to his knees, sobbing. "It's true. Forgive me. Please forgive me." Adana's scream pierced the air. She staggered back, her face pale with shock. "You lied to me. You let me plan this wedding while hiding this." She turned to me, her voice shaking. "You knew, Amara. You knew and you chose today." "Yes," I said coldly. "Just as you chose my wedding day to ruin me. Only difference is, mine was built on truth and yours was built on lies." The pastor tried to calm the room, but the damage was done. Guests began leaving in outrage. Some insulted Cheeky's family, others cursed Adana. The choir stopped singing, the drummers packed their instruments. The grand wedding had collapsed into chaos. Adana stood trembling, tears streaking her makeup. Her perfect dream had shattered before her eyes. She turned to me, desperation written all over her face. "How could you do this to me?" she whispered. I stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. "Sister," You sowed this seed. You watered it with your envy. Today you reap what you planted. She shook her head violently, her voice breaking. No, 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 this can't be happening. But it was. Chike tried to beg her, reaching for her hands. Adana, please, we can fix this. She slapped his hands away. Fix what? You have a child you never told me about. Do you think I'll be mocked the way Amara was mocked? Never! I would rather die than marry a liar like you. Her voice carried through the church, silencing the murmurs. Everyone saw it. Adana's downfall lived before their eyes. The wedding was officially over. Later that evening, back at the house, Adana locked herself in her room. She refused to eat, refused to speak. My parents were deeply embarrassed, but also quietly relieved. They had never supported her relationship with Chike after what happened to me. I sat on my bed, my heart strangely calm. It was not joy I felt, nor hatred. It was release. For the first time in a year, I could breathe again. Justice had been served. But little did I know. This was only the beginning. Because Adana was not the type to accept defeat quietly. And though I had broken her, she was already plotting something that would change both our lives forever. The days after Adana's ruined wedding were heavy with silence. The once lively house was now filled with whispers and tension. Relatives who had travelled for the wedding left in anger, cursing our family name. Neighbours gathered at the gates, gossiping, pointing, laughing. For the first time, Adana avoided the spotlight. She hid inside her room, blinds drawn, her laughter gone. I would sometimes hear muffled sobs at night, and though a part of me pitied her, another part reminded me of the tears I had shed a year ago. My parents were torn. My mother pleaded with me. Amara, she is your sister. Must you humiliate her like this? I looked at her with quiet strength. Mama, did you forget? She humiliated me first. She stole my joy. She destroyed my reputation. She left me in ashes. I only gave her what she gave me. My father, stern and unforgiving, muttered, "She deserves worse. Betraying your own blood is a curse that follows you for life." Meanwhile, Chike disappeared from the community. His family whisked him away in shame, refusing to speak of the scandal. No one saw him for months. People said he was drinking heavily. Others whispered he had lost his job. To me, it didn't matter. He was no longer my problem. But to Dana, she was still my twin. And though I had broken her pride, I knew her well enough to know she wouldn't. Let the story end there. And I was right. One evening, nearly 3 months later, she came to my room. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, but her voice carried venom. "You think you've won, don't you?" she spat. "You think because you ruined my wedding, you are better than me." I closed my book calmly. "Adana, I didn't ruin your wedding." "Truth did," she sneered. "Truth or revenge? Don't pretend you're righteous. You waited an entire year to strike. You wanted me to feel the same humiliation you felt. I didn't deny it." "Yes. And now you know how it feels." Her fists clenched. "You may have destroyed my wedding, but I swear, Amara, I will destroy your life. If I cannot be happy, neither will you." I held her gaze, unshaken. "Sister, you've already destroyed yourself, and nothing you do can change the fact that everyone has now seen who you truly are." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. For a while, she kept her distance. She stopped eating with the family, stopped going to church, but then something strange happened. She began sneaking out at night, returning in the early hours of the morning. She looked thinner, restless, with a haunted look in her eyes. One night, I followed her quietly. She walked to a run-down bar at the edge of town, where Chike was known to drown his sorrows. There, I saw them together, two broken people clinging to each other like drowning souls. It hit me then. She hadn't given up on him. Even after everything, she still wanted him. But fate had other plans. Not long after, Cheek was arrested for embezzling money from his company. His drinking and desperation had led him into crime. The scandal was even worse than the first. Newspapers wrote about it. Neighbors gossiped about it. And once again, Adana's name was dragged into the mud because of her association with him. This time, there was no wedding to hide behind, no fake dignity to cling to. She was humiliated beyond repair. One evening, she confronted me again, tears streaming down her face. "Are you happy now?" she shouted. "He is in jail, my name is ruined, and everyone laughs at me. Are you satisfied, Amara?" I looked at her, my heart aching despite everything. "Adana, I never wanted you destroyed. I only wanted you to understand my pain. But instead of learning, you clung to a man who never loved you. That was your choice." She sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. For the first time, I saw not the proud, envious sister, but a broken girl lost in her own shadows. As weeks passed, she grew quieter. The fire in her eyes dimmed. She stopped threatening me, stopped fighting. It was as though she had finally accepted defeat. I, on the other hand, rose higher. My career flourished, and soon I was traveling abroad for work. I bought my parents a new house, restoring their dignity. People who once mocked me now respected me. Suitors began approaching again, but I was in no rush. My heart needed time to heal, and Adana? She remained in the background, living like a ghost. Some days, I wondered if I had gone too far, but then I remembered the pain of my own wedding day, the tears I had shed, the humiliation I had endured. Justice had been served. A year later, I stood once again in front of a mirror, this time not in a wedding gown, but in a suit. I had been invited to speak at an international conference about women in leadership. As I adjusted my collar, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. Betrayal, pain, revenge, justice. Life had tested me in the cruelest way, but I had risen. Adana never came to see me off at the airport that day. In truth, I don't know what became of her afterwards. Some said she left town to start over. Others whispered she lived in seclusion. But one thing was certain. Her envy had destroyed her, while my resilience had built me. And as I stood before that crowd of powerful women, sharing my story of survival, I realized something important. The greatest revenge is not destroying your enemy. It is rising so high that they can never reach you again. Envy may burn brightly, but it always consumes the one who carries it. Betrayal may wound deeply, but resilience heals stronger. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is not revenge at all. It is living a life so full, so powerful, that your enemies fade into shadows.